Hello and welcome back to the show. So I am really excited to be joined here by today's guest, Steve Shull, who is a former linebacker for the Miami Dolphins. And he is actually a real estate agent coach as well for over 32 years and over 60,000 hours coached of one-on-one coaching with other real estate agents. He is also the author of the book, The Full Fee Agent. In today's episode, Steve is going to be sharing with us a little bit about how real estate agents can actually get their full commission in this new world after the NAR settlement and compensation changes as well. So, Steve is definitely a legend both in sports, but also in real estate as well. And I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Well,
Well,
thank you very much for having me.
yeah, it's an honor to have you join us, and I really appreciate you sharing a little bit of your time with us. But before we dig into kind of what we wanted to talk about, I would love for you to be able to share a little bit about your background. You've obviously had a really illustrious career in sports in the NFL, and then how did that kind of lead you to being having the same success here in real estate as a real estate coach as well?
Great. Well, grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is outside of Philadelphia. I played all three sports growing up: football, baseball, basketball. Eventually, I went to the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. I got a football scholarship and played there for 4 years and made it as a free agent. I was not drafted. I was a free agent with the Miami Dolphins and played linebacker. Got to play in one Super Bowl, Super Bowl 17. Was captain of that game. That was actually the last game I ever played in the following year. I got injured in preseason, had a knee injury that I never really recovered from. And so my career lasted 4 years. From there, I went back. I got an MBA at the University of Miami. And then I worked on Wall Street for 5 years, including a stint at Solomon Brothers on their government desk. And then in 1991, another career change, moved out to Southern California and got into residential real estate. I had listened to an interview that Mike Ferry did with two agents in Long Beach, California, Kim and Daryl Rouse. They were in their second year. They were on track to do 100 deals. I listened to this interview and everything kind of clicked for me instantly. The idea that contacts equal leads, leads equal appointments, appointments equal listings, listings equal sales. And so, having been an athlete, I was very coachable and I was going to Mike's programs and just listening to what top agents were doing. I partnered up with someone who'd been in the business for 10 years plus. So she knew the technical part of the business. Together in our first year, we closed 53 transactions in a horrible real estate market, nothing like anyone's seen unless you sold back then. And then in my second year, we were on track to sell 100 homes and came up with the idea. At that point in time, there were real estate trainers, but there were no real estate coaches. And I went to Mike. I said, Mike, what I did with Cynthia, because basically I became her. I was like a player coach with her. I said, what I did with Cynthia's business, I think I can do with other people's business. And he liked the idea. And we went to a company. He was doing a program at an office in Las Vegas, Coldwell Banker Premier. This was 1993. We signed up 9 agents for a coaching program that didn't exist. Then we went on to San Francisco at a much bigger program and signed up 90 people that day. And I had to go back to Newport Beach where the office was and create a structure of what coaching would look like. In the beginning, it was a 15-minute phone call every 2 weeks. I created this form where, agents would track their contacts, leads, appointments, listings, and sales. Back then, we didn't have email, it was fax, and they would fax in their form every week. And I had my schedule, and uh, in a 2 year, 3 year period of time, we had 2,000 clients and 9 different coaches. And then I went out on my own in 1996 and formed Performance Coaching. And I've had that company ever since. In 2007, myself and 2 partners opened up a real estate company. We had offices in Beverly Hills, Pasadena, Newport, and grew that to 500 plus agents. And I did that for a 5 year period of time before leaving. That company eventually sold to Douglas Elliman. And here I am today, still coaching real estate agents.
Yeah, so that's you've been through quite a few cycles in the real
Yep.
estate market, it sounds
Right.
like. So I would love for you to share a little bit about that experience. How was it, going through these cycles? What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned? Because I am sure there are agents today who are, first for the first time in their business experiencing maybe a down market or some challenges as a real estate agent.
I had the advantage starting in 1991 of starting in an awful market. I mean, terrible. Literally, if you got an offer on a property in 90 days, that was considered a miracle. We were taking listings, 1 and 2 year listings. In my, month number 6 in my first year in real estate, I had 40 listings and no escrows. And, so it was a completely different environment than what we're used to. And I knocked 200 doors a day. I called expired listings every day. I was literally prospecting a minimum of 4 to 5 hours a day. Back then, CRMs did not exist. There was no such thing as a, contact management system. I had to pay a computer programmer to develop a contact management system. And yes, it was rudimentary, but really not that much different than, what you have today. And, over the 18 months that I sold, accumulated 1,800 leads. They all went in the CRM. They all set up. I, made those calls every day. Again, because of my sports background, I just attacked it in a very different way. And the advantage when you start in a really difficult market where there's no wind at your back, you got to do certain things, and you've got to do the fundamentals, and you've got to get great at the fundamentals. And so, what most agents don't understand is that there are 3 forces that impact their productivity. One is what they do. 2 is what the market is doing. And 3, what their sphere is doing. And so on your best day, you're only in control of maybe 1/3 of the factors that impact your productivity. And truth be told, the market and what the clients do is a much bigger factor in how many homes you sell than what you're doing. And so, the coaching's evolved tremendously over 32 years. When I first got in the business, it was all about prospecting and following up. Everybody I worked with was a stranger. I didn't know anyone. And Mike, way back then, he didn't believe in open houses. He didn't believe in repeat and referral business. It was all about, we were given 4 choices: knock on doors, cold call, expired listings, for sale by owners. And there was no way I was going to cold call. And there was no way, for sale by owners just didn't appeal in any way. So by default, it was door knocking and expired listings. And I would say to anyone who's listening to this call, There are no good choices in real estate in terms of how you generate business. If you're looking for something that's comfortable, natural, feels good, go do something else because it doesn't work that way. And even though my coaching has totally evolved to building a repeat referral business, I don't teach lead generation or lead conversion anymore. It's all about developing a repeat referral business. That's not natural either. Getting in relationship with people you don't know and then staying in relationship, that's not natural either. There's nothing comfortable about that. So in professional sports, you learn you've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's a core coaching philosophy that stays with me, that I'm teaching people all the time. So yes, I've been through lots of different markets. A market's a market, nothing you can do about it. The one thing that's for certain, there's always opportunity. There's always opportunity. And you just got to find it. You've got to find the opportunity. And, the thing I would say to anyone who's listening to this, real estate, understand it's a 30+ year career. And most every real estate agent is making decisions based on where are they getting their next deal. Most every real estate agent has a short-term focus. Again, it's all about survival because I need a paycheck and I need it now. And as long as that's where your mind is, you're screwed. You're on a treadmill going nowhere. You've got to take a much longer term approach and you have to be much more strategic. It's not about working harder. It's not about having a bigger personality. You can't scale working harder. You can't scale personality. You can scale process. And that's the key to growing your business, no matter what the market's doing.
I love that you said that. You can't scale personality, right? And you can't scale hard work or working hard. Those are things that I think real estate agents put so much effort into, and a lot of coaches are teaching as well, is you have to have, some certain type of personality. You have to be a certain, show up a certain way, and you have to work, a certain amount of hours yourself. But what you said is process, that is what allows you to scale. And you have a process where you're teaching and coaching agents on how to generate repeat and referral business, right? So what does that look like as far as what you're teaching agents so that way they can have a process to scale and not just solely rely on 100% of their effort?
So again, I've been doing this 32 years. I was an agent. I was a company owner. I've consulted with companies. I've been coaching 60,000 plus hours, and I pay attention. And over this 32-year period of time where I landed on 6 core building blocks. And they are: 1, practicing mindfulness, okay, your mind; 2, optimizing time; 3, cultivating relationship, all about relationship; 4, implementing standards. What people don't understand, if you want to grow your business, raise your standards. People are doing the exact opposite. They think they have to lower their standards to get more business, commission being a great example. The more you give away your commission, the harder you have to work. The difference between getting 2.5 and 3.5 is 40%. And so, implementing standards, commission is a big one. That's why I co-authored the book, The Full Fee Agent, with Chris Voss. The 5th building block is mastering communication. And again, this is something that I learned with Chris. Chris wrote the book, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. And probably almost 9 years ago, one of my clients gave me that book. And on a Saturday afternoon, I started reading it. And I just had a major epiphany. And I had been the guy for 20 plus years who've been trying to extract all the emotion out of real estate and boil it down to fact, logic, and reason. This is how you do it. A, B, C, D. And I wrote more scripts than anyone. And all of those scripts were based in fact, logic, and reason, leading people to an inescapable conclusion. And in reading Never Split the Difference, the epiphany was you cannot overcome emotion with fact, logic, and reason. People don't make decisions based in fact, logic, and reason. They make emotional decisions. Buying a house is one of the most emotional experiences that someone's going to go through. And so that book just, I did a 180. I did a 180 overnight. And I reached out to Chris and got a hold of Chris and said everything, he was a former FBI hostage negotiator. In fact, he ran the international hostage negotiations for the FBI for 7 years. And, everything in that book about hostage negotiation applied to real estate, everything. So I reached out. I said, Chris, everything you wrote about applies to real estate. Is there any way we can work together? We started teaching some courses on negotiation, listing presentations, and ultimately, we ended up writing this book. And anyone out there, this is a real game changer. This is not about working harder. This is not about having a bigger personality. And I'll give you an example. What a game changer this is. One of the concept that Chris teaches, and it's a core concept in real estate. And the concept that he teaches is the more you give away, the more value you provide for free, the less valuable you become. Well, real estate agents do the exact opposite. Real estate agents give everything away for free, hoping to get business. And so one of the first things that we focused on was the idea that you would not go out to someone's home for a listing appointment without a commitment up front that they were going to list with you. Okay. I'm not going out to your home. You get the call that everybody wants. Hi, we're thinking about selling our home and we'd like you to come out and talk to us. Every agent wants that call all day long. Am I wrong about that?
Absolutely not. Every agent,
Right.
they dream about it.
Right. That's what they live for. And so what happens, I get that phone call. I'm going to spend 2 hours or more preparing all my stuff to go on that appointment. Okay. I'm going to drive out to that appointment. I'm going to take a tour of the home, 15 minutes, an hour, depending on, how big the home is. Then we're going to sit down in the living room and I'm going to take out my canned presentation and I'm either going to go through it or I'm just going to have an informal conversation. I'm going to spend the next hour to 2 hours talking and the potential sellers sitting there listening. We're going to talk about price. We're going to talk about home preparation. I'm going to tell them all my ideas for what they need to do to their home to get their home ready. And then we're going to go through my marketing plan. I'm going to tell them all the wonderful things that I'm going to do for them to get their home sold. And then at the end, they're going to go, thank you. Thank you very much. You've given us so much to think about. Let us get back to you. And you pack up your stuff and you leave the home and you go, what the fuck? You have no idea, are they hiring me or are they not hiring me? And you drive back to your house and you're replaying the whole appointment in your head. Shouldn't have said that, or I should have said this. Do I follow up? And then for the next 24, 48, 72 hours a week, you're on pins and needles. You're waiting to find out, did I get the listing? Should I email them? Should I call them? What would I say? You drive yourself nuts. Am I far off on this?
I think this is you're driving right into what every single agent is thinking right now.
Right. And then the phone rings and I see it's them. And my heart starts beating. Hello. Hi, Steve. It's Sally and Joe Smith. It was a really hard decision. You gave us so much to think about. However, we're going in a different direction. And you feel like you just got sucker punched. You can barely say thank you. And sometimes you'll squeeze out, oh, in the hopes of getting better, can you give me any feedback? Like you're going to get an honest answer. Okay. Don't ever do that. Anyway, you hang up the phone and you feel like crap because if you add it up, you probably spent at least 10 hours getting ready, going out there, following up to get what? A no. And what nobody out there understands, and this is what Chris and I teach that's so different, the entire industry is based on a false premise, which is that agents win or lose business based on one, their value proposition, and two, their ability to articulate that value proposition, whether it's to a buyer or a seller. What people don't understand, when you got that initial phone call, they already knew who they were going to work with, or they're leaning strongly in someone's direction. And Chris calls this the concept of the favorite or the fool. And what that means, there's no such thing as an open mind, and there's no such thing as a level playing field. Every human being out there has personal preferences that have nothing to do with you. And they have those preferences going into the process. And you either line up with them or you don't. There's nothing you can do about that. And so when they're calling you, again, they already know or they're leaning in a direction. And so what we teach, and again, this sounds ridiculous. You're out there right now going, this guy is certifiable. He got hit one too many times in the head. We need to shut him up. All right. Sorry. I'm still here, still going. What we teach now is when we get that phone call, we're going to say, if you don't mind, great. I'd love to come out. We can absolutely set a time. However, if you don't mind, which is called a no-oriented question, we're asking a question designed to get a no response that serves us. This is one of the things that we teach. Every salesperson out there has been trained to try and get a yes. What they don't realize is when you're trying to get a yes out of somebody, you're actually creating resistance. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to set up a quick call, no more than 15 minutes. We can do it by Zoom so I can, you can share a little bit more about what's going on. Well, this is the first filter you're running them through to find out whether you are the favorite or the fool. Because if they say, no, I don't want to do that, I just want you to come out to the house, that's a pretty good indication that you're the fool in the game. When you're the favorite, they're going to say yes to whatever you want to do. And so we call it the new client discovery call. And there's a framework for that call. The framework is there a deal here? Is there a deal here with me? And do I want this deal? That's what I'm running them through in this 15-minute Zoom call. And I'm going to start out and I'm going to find out, tell me a little bit more about what's going on. I want to get them talking. And again, if they don't want to talk, that probably means you're the fool in the gate. Because when you're the favorite, they're going to be very collaborative. They're going to be open. They're going to be sharing. They're not going to be guarded. When you're the fool in the game, all they want is free information. They don't want to be giving information. They want to be getting information. So you're listening for, am I the favorite or the fool? So tell me a little bit more about what's going on. And let's say they're a seller. You're going to say, if in selling your home, if it felt like you just won the lottery, share with me, if you don't mind, what that would look like. I want to hear what their fantasy is. I want to find out what their fantasy is. I want to find out what they really want. And I'm going to probe and I'm going to find out. I'm going to, if you could have the ideal outcome, what would it be? And I'm going to tease out what the fantasy is. Let's say the home is really worth $1 million. What they want, though, is $1.3 million. I want to know that they want $1.3 million. I want to know that. Then I'm going to say, okay, now that we know the fantasy, what would be the nightmare? What is the situation you most want to avoid? And they're, again, when you're the favorite, they're going to tell you. And here's something that most people don't understand. Fear of loss is a much greater motivator than the prospect of gain. So I want to find out what they don't want to have happen. So the first thing, what's the fantasy? What's the nightmare? And then I'm going to go to, all right, what are you actually hoping for? What are you actually expecting? And what I'm listening for is there any reality here? Is there any reality? Now, I'm not giving them a price. I'm not talking about price. I'm listening to what they're describing. And again, what I'm listening for, is there a deal here? Assuming there's a deal here, now we get into, is there a deal here with me? And I'm going to say to them, would it be crazy to think that if you could, you'd like to go through this process, it'd be your preference not to have to work with a real estate agent? The listeners are going, what? Again, it's a mislabel. It's what we call a mislabel, because 9 out of 10 people want to do what? They want to work with an agent. And I want them to say, no, we want to work with an agent. However, the ones that really don't, I want to know that right up front. And if I say, it'd be your preference not to work, and yeah, if we didn't have to, we wouldn't. I want to know that. I want to know it up front. Let's assume, though, they say, no, we absolutely want to work with an agent. Then I'm going to say, it's what we take from the hostage negotiation world. We call it proof of life. In the hostage negotiation, they're not going to negotiate unless they know the hostage is alive. Well, I want to know, is there a deal here with me? Because if there's not, I don't need to be giving out my information. So I'm going to say, in tone of voice and pace, very important, I'm going to say, I'm curious, of all the real estate agents you could have reached out to, why me? 2 words. Why me? Now, what I'm listening for is, do they have a robust response or a random response? Robust response. Well, you sold our neighbor's home. We talked to the neighbor. They raved about you. They had nothing but great things to say about you. We went on your website. We love the way you present properties. We read all your client testimonials. We love what Sally Smith had to say about you. We actually came by an open house without you knowing it and watched you in action. And we really loved the way you handled open house. Ding, 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 ding. Probably the favorite. Okay. Let's contrast that. Why me? We were driving around the neighborhood and we saw a sign. And so we thought we'd give you a call. Or we got a piece of mail, so we thought we'd reach out to you. Or we were throwing darts at a dartboard and your name came up. There's a big difference in how they answer that question. Their answer is their perception of your value. And it's their chance to defend. Again, you're always trying to talk them into why they should work with you. I want them telling me why they want to work with me. I want them defending why they want to work with me. Because I don't want to work with them if they don't want to work with me. And I certainly don't want to talk them into doing something they don't want to do. So in asking why me, I'm going to get clear. Am I the favorite or am I the fool? If I think I'm the favorite, then I'm going to go to, at the risk of not wanting to be presumptuous, would it be wrong to assume that you would like to work together? And if I'm the favorite, guess what? They're going to say, no, absolutely. We want to work together. When you're the favorite, they have no reason to withhold that information. If I think I'm the fool in the game, if I get the sense that I'm here for due diligence, I'm on this call for due diligence, I'm going to say, at the risk of not wanting to put you on the spot, would it be wrong to assume that you're probably leaning in the direction of working with another agent? And now they're going to squirm because they got caught. They got caught. What are they going to say to that? Oh, no, we haven't made our mind up. We're still thinking about it. What you're not going to hear, if you're the fool in the game, you're not going to hear, oh, no, we absolutely want to work with you. So depending on their response, then I'm either moving forward or exiting gracefully. And the graceful exit, if I see I'm the fool in the game, and remember, I'm on a Zoom call, we're less than 15 minutes. All of this takes less than 15 minutes. I'm not talking price. I'm not talking home preparation. I'm not talking marketing. I haven't given away anything. I'm just finding out whether they see me as a trusted advisor or not. If I'm going to exit gracefully, I'm going to say, all right, so it sounds like you've got some good people you want to meet with. Why don't we do this? Why don't you meet with those people first? And if for some reason you're not 100% confident, comfortable working with them, then you can reach back out to me. All right. If I'm the fool in the game, I'm not expecting a call back. If I feel I'm the favorite and they just said, yeah, we want to work with you, great. There are a couple things that we need to bring up that might be potential sticking points. All right. Because I want to find out, do I want this business? And so the big thing I'm going to bring up is, and they're going to go, great, what's that? The first thing we need to discuss is my fee. Okay. What's your fee? I'm a full service, full fee agent. Or another response is, what's your fee? I'm very expensive. Okay. And what you're doing now, you're bracing them. Because now in their mind, you're going to be asking for 10% or more. And now, the answer used to be, 6%. Now it's 3 or 3.5, depending on what you charge. On the listing side, let's say it's 3.5. I'm big on 3.5. So I'm very expensive. All right. How expensive? My fee is 3.5%. Now, here's another big coaching moment. Everyone out there listening to this, they think your fee, that people are hiring you and paying you based on your value. No. When you're the favorite, they're going to pay you what your fee is, period. Yes, they might push back once, they might push back twice. All they're doing is fishing to make sure they're not leaving any money on the table. When you're the fool in the game, it doesn't make a difference what your fee is. They're not hiring you. People don't understand this. People think, oh my goodness, I've got to show them all these things I do in order to get my fee. No, when you're the favorite, when they perceive you as a trusted advisor, when they perceive you as being trustworthy, competent, a straight shooter, they're going to pay whatever your number is, whatever it is. They might say, when you say my fee is 3%, is that fee negotiable? I'm going to say 3.5% is my standard. That's the fee I charge everyone. 99% of them aren't going to say anything more. If they come back and say, well, is there any room at all? Then I'm going to say, it sounds like my fee might be a deal breaker for you. And then we're going to get, then we're going to find out, is it a deal breaker or not? And so, if we have other standards in terms of staging a property, getting it ready, pricing it, hours that we work, open house, anything that you consider a standard, we want to get it out on the table now, because if it's a problem, we want to deal with it up front. We don't want to deal with it later. This whole conversation on the phone or via Zoom, 15 minutes when you're good at it, give or take. There's nothing magical about 15 minutes. Just understand it's not a 2-hour conversation. And at the end of that conversation, I get to the same outcome every time versus you spending 10 plus hours driving out to the house, waiting, going through all the nonsense that you go through. So I've cut my time down dramatically, and I cut my stress down dramatically.
Yeah.
That's what this is all about. This book is about tactical empathy. Tactical empathy is the skill and ability to influence others by articulating what they're thinking and feeling without agreeing, disagreeing, or sympathizing. It's literally, in essence, it is the skill of making people feel understood. It is the missing piece in sales. Many of you have been trained, find out what's going on, understand what the situation is. And then when you understand, you've been taught to sell into whatever the opportunity is. The missing piece is, once you understand what they, not you, what they are thinking and feeling, then make them feel understood. And there's a bunch of tools to do that. A label, where you label, it sounds like what you're feeling is X, or it seems like what you're thinking is Y, or it feels like what you want is ABC. We call these labeling. What you're targeting is a that's right response. When I label, you're looking at me right now thinking this guy is nuts. That's right. And when you hear that's right, those two words, not you're right, that's right, That means you hit the bullseye. They get that you get what they're thinking and feeling. And once you get a couple that's right, you're going to see their shoulders relax. You're going to see their whole energy relax. And now they can actually listen to anything that you have to say because they now feel understood. Until someone feels understood, they're not hearing anything you say. They're just getting ready to talk. They're just getting ready to make their point. And again, this is a missing piece. This is something that no one's teaching. And don't tell me you're doing it right now. You're not. And if you think you are, then you're doing it unconsciously. And once you understand what you're actually doing, you'll be able to do it a lot better than what you're doing right now.
Right. So that's a really good breakdown. I think I've never heard a breakdown like this before on this podcast or really any other training podcast or session where you have broken down exactly what to say and exactly how to get the full fee as a real estate agent on the listing side. Now, post the NAR settlements, would you say that you can use this exact framework with a buyer client in your buyer consultation in order to get, get your full fee as a buyer's agent as well? Or is there a slight difference or a slight tweak to what you would do to that framework?
Wow. Now, and I want to stress this. We don't teach script and dialogue. This is not about memorizing dialogue. There's a framework, there's a progression. And as a linebacker in the NFL, this is something we worked on every day, being able to read the situation in front of you. You know, what are the line, what's the formation? What's the down and distance? What are the line splits? Does the offensive lineman have pressure on his fingertips? Is the fullback cheated up? You're reading the situation. This is no different. Chris talks about it in Never Split the Difference. He calls it the cold read. So we're not memorizing. I want to make this point because people can get hung up on the exact words. It's not about a dialogue. It's about a framework. It's about a progression of thought. And there's lots of tools that we teach: labels, mislabels, accusations audit, focus comparison. And all of this is based on science of mind. This is not, a fad. This is how the mind actually works. This is why we use no-oriented questions. People love to say no. No makes them feel safe and protected. So again, there's science behind everything that we're doing here. It's the same conversation on the flip side. Is there a deal here? Is there a deal here with me? Do I want this deal? Just it changes a little bit in terms of, all right, in terms of buying a home, if you won the lottery, what would that look like? What, if you could realize your ideal scenario, would you mind walking me through what that looks like? So I want to know what kind of home they want to buy. What do they really want? And then we're going to flip it back around. Okay, now that we know what the fantasy is, what would be the nightmare? What situation would cause you to rethink whether you want to buy or not? And I want to know what they're afraid of. Again, what they're afraid of is a bigger motivator than what they want. Then, okay, what are you hoping for? What are you really hoping for as we go through this process? Now, one thing I didn't talk about, we call it crossing the street, meaning whenever we get into a conversation, when we know we're going to get into a conversation, whether it's with a seller or a buyer, the first thing we want to do as the agent, we call it dumping your bucket. What that means is I want to let go of all my needs, all my wants, all my desires. I want to be an empty vessel. I don't want anything. All I want to do is get to the truth. So I'm dumping my bucket. I'm letting go. As Buddha said, the seed of all suffering, the source of all suffering in life is desire. So I don't want anything. And then after I dump my bucket, I'm going to cross the street. Remember, when you're in any conversation, any sales interaction, it starts out, you're on one side of the street, they're on the other side of the street. And what you've done your whole career is you're yelling across the street, hey, come over here. Come over here. I've got this. I've got that. I've got this. I've got that. Come on. I got all the good stuff. And you're always trying to get them to cross over to where you are. In our methodology, no, we cross the street. I want to see the world through their eyes. I know what I'm thinking and feeling. It's not about me. It's about them. So this is really important mentally to cross the street. And so across the street, I find out, okay, what's the fantasy? What's the nightmare? What are they hoping for in terms of a purchase? Then we're going to get into, I'm curious, of all the agents you could have reached out to, why me? Now, if it's a Zillow lead, what are they going to say? I just want to see the damn listing. That's what they're going to say. Are you going to show it to me or not? And we're going to say, I can absolutely show you that listing. Won't be a problem. However, if you don't mind, before we go out and see the property, would you be opposed to a quick call or Zoom call? We can do it now, if now's not a bad time and you have time. 15 minutes or less to find out a little more about what's going on. Again, first filter. Am I the fool or the favorite? Now, you're out there, you're an agent, you got to pay your rent or pay your mortgage or your car payment. You need an escrow right now. You're saying, screw this. I'm going out and showing the property. And guess what? 10 years from now, you're going to be doing the same damn thing. Guess what? 20 years from now, you're going to be doing the same damn thing. 30 years from now, you're going to be doing the same damn thing. Hear me clearly, each and every one of you. Having done this for 32 years, watching the complete arc of real estate careers, more is not the answer. In this industry, there's this implicit promise. No one says it out loud. However, it's implied that if you sell enough homes, everything's going to be okay. Bullshit. You're measured by your production, you're ranked by your production, you're paid by your production. This industry focuses on one thing. And in doing that, it turns you into a commodity, not a trusted advisor. And unfortunately, now you're chasing a deal, you're chasing a dollar bill. And I'm telling you right here, right now, that's what you're going to be doing for the next 30 years. You're wasting your life. If you think you're going to be able to chase and make enough money to retire, you are wrong. You are wrong. You're going to be in your mid-70s chasing. You can say, it won't be me. Yes, it will. All right. So I don't know how I jumped off on that tangent, but so with the buyer, running out the Zillow thing. All right, I'm not showing property till I find out whether I'm the favorite or the fool. And if they don't want to do if they can't do a 15-minute phone call with me, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm only going to engage in high probability activities. I'm never going to engage in low probability activities. When you're chasing, when you're going after a stranger who has no commitment, that's a low probability activity. And if I'm doing that all the time, then I'm working harder. Then I'm producing less and they're paying me less. How is that ever going to work out? In what universe? Where I've got to work harder, do less, and get paid less. How does that work out? It doesn't, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't. So now we're going to go through that same phone call. I'm finding out the fantasy, the nightmare, what they're hoping for. I'm curious, why me? Either robust response or random response. At the risk of not wanting to be presumptuous, would I be wrong to assume we want to work together? Sounds like, you're not ready to commit to an agent. Now we're not ready to commit. Well, I'm gone. If you think you might be the favorite, then we're going to get into fee. And that's when we're going to have the conversation. And that conversation is going to sound like, would it be wrong to think that you may have seen some headlines over the last year about the National Association of Realtors or lawsuits or settlements or commissions? I want to find out, what do they know, if they know anything. I always want to give them the opportunity to talk first. So I'm going to find out, do they know anything? Are they thinking anything? And then I'm going to say, if you don't mind, would it be a horrible idea if I laid out the realities of today's real estate market? And they're all going to say, no, sure, please do. Great. In today's market, you as a buyer, you need to understand that ultimately you are responsible for my fee. Okay? You're responsible for my fee. And my fee is 3% or 3.5%. Again, we don't have time today, but this whole thing is an opportunity to get a pay raise. It's an opportunity to get a pay raise. Just having this conversation with a whole team today. Anyway, ultimately, you're responsible for my fee. That's the starting point. The buyer needs to understand they are responsible for my fee. Yes, there may be an offset, meaning many sellers are still offering a marketing incentive to the agent representing the buyer. Might be cover my full fee, might be a partial fee. Okay. The other option, we can include my fee as part of any offer. However, keep in mind, the seller can accept it, reject it, or counter it. Again, ultimately, though, you're responsible for my fee. So I want them to know what my fee is, and I want them to know how that happens. And I don't want to give them the false sense of they're not paying the fee. I'm having that conversation up front. And if they have questions, I'm going to answer the questions. And then the other thing we need to discuss is, in order for me to work with you, you have to sign what is called an exclusive buyer representation agreement. You've probably never heard of that. No, we haven't heard of that. Would you mind if I walk through what the main points are? No, please do. Point one. The buyer representation agreement comes down to three main things. One, it outlines, it details my fiduciary responsibility to you in buying a home, meaning I put your interest first at all times. Two, it defines our relationship of one of exclusivity and the time frame of this agreement, which is X, whatever the time frame is. And again, the third thing it details, which I just went over, is my fee, which again is X. And again, I want to remind you, ultimately, you're responsible. There might be an offset. However, you need to factor that in to your decision making. So again, 15-minute conversation, give or take. I'm finding out whether I'm the favorite or the fool, and I'm not doing anything without a commitment from that other person to work together. So I know you're thinking I'm crazy. You're thinking this is this is absurd. This will never work. Well, for the last 9 years, this is what I've been coaching, and this works. This is what is enabling people to make more money in less time with a lot less stress.
It's a completely different way of thinking when you're approaching these conversations. And that's really what I got out of this. Instead of you being the person who is desperate to get the deal, you are just simply discovering whether or not the client or the potential client has any incentive, or do they really actually want to work with you, or are they just hoping you would pitch to them like any other agent that is out there. So it's a different way of thinking where you're putting yourself in a different position and you're literally going through a discovery process. A lot of agents tend to use the words discovery, but in their process, it's not really a discovery process. It's
Oh.
still really kind of just them pitching. But the framework that you've just detailed is a true discovery process where, like you said, you've detached what you want from the situation and you're simply getting information from the person that you're talking to and seeing whether or not they think of you as the favorite or the fool.
And I can do this, and you get that's right, you got it. I can do this because I'm focused on the 6 core building blocks: practicing mindfulness, optimizing time, cultivating relationship, implementing standards, mastering communication, and acting strategically. I understand that money is not the priority. Money is a byproduct of what I do. I'm more focused on how I do business versus everyone else is focused on how much business they're doing. And again, having done this for 32 years, I'm telling you right now, you're going down the wrong path. End of story. It's not going to be pleasant at the end. And so we've got a whole system that we coach. I've been doing this 32 years, over 60,000 hours. I know what I'm doing. And that's what's different about my company, Performance Coaching.
Yeah. So Steve, man, I really appreciate you being here today and sharing all of that with us. It is truly very valuable, I think, in this post NAR world, where a lot of agents are struggling, even more so than before, to have these conversations, navigating, these client relationships. So for the people out
Begging
there,
sucks. Begging sucks. How can you have a pleasant conversation when you're begging for business? And that's all you're doing. When you're convincing, when you're trying to convince somebody, you're basically begging. How can that feel good in any way, shape, or form?
yeah, exactly. A lot of agents, that's what they're doing right now is begging and I would say that's not the correct mindset and mind frame to approach these situations. So yeah, man. So for people who are out there who are listening to this that found the value that I did today, that want to learn more about what you do in your coaching company or want to get a copy of your book, The Full Fee Agent, what are some of the best places for people to find you and to get a copy of your book?
Well, again, Full Fee Agent on Amazon. It's on audio also. Uh, Another book I wrote called Real Estate is Not Rocket Science. Just recorded the audio. It's not out yet. Uh, you can get a free chapter on our website, performancecoaching.com, of The Full Fee Agent, of Real Estate is Not Rocket Science. The other book I co-authored is the Real Estate Team Playbook. All of you that are into teams, and man, you need to read this book because nobody in real estate has a clue how to do a real estate team. Sorry to be so blunt. And again, www.performancecoaching.com. Everything's on Amazon. If you have any questions, email support@performancecoaching.com.
Awesome. We'll make sure to leave all of the links to those in the description of this video down below. So that way it is easy for you to check out and find Steve. But before I let you go, man, really appreciate you being here today. Is there any last tip or advice you want to leave with the audience here before we let you sign off?
The thing I would encourage all of you to do is make sure you're working at the root cause of what's going on in your life. And what that means is until you understand who you are, until you embrace who you are, nothing's going to change. Everyone goes through life feeling like they're not good enough. And who you're trying to be, who you think you need to be, understand that who you actually are is so much greater than who you're trying to be. And I'll throw one more book recommendation out there. Anything by Michael Singer, Living Untethered, The Untethered Soul, The Surrender Experiment. Highly recommended. Until you get your head on straight, nothing else matters.
That's some really, really good advice, man. So appreciate you again. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on the next show.
Thank
Take
you very
care.
much. Thanks, everyone.